Today on Hearts of Heroes, 2 incredible water rescues.
One person said there's someone inside of it.
Put a rush on everybody.
She wasn't breathing.
Go towards the wall.
The other officers were kind of holding her while I was doing chest compressions.
In those temperatures, the turnout's not going to be good.
Plus, a second dramatic water rescue.
He drove straight into the water.
Sends a dive team jumping into action.
Car that just went off the dock at City Park.
We had hardly any time at all. The car was sinking.
Gotta get that door open, Marty.
My initial thought was, we gotta get this guy out of here now.
Go ahead, I'm clear, bust it.
These heroes prove that no matter how deep the challenge, they have what it takes to rise to the occasion. Water rescues are challenging and incredibly dangerous, even for those specifically trained for these kinds of events.
And when a car accidentally drove into the Delaware River, police officers and Good Samaritans joined forces. Together, they would rely on courage, quick thinking, and teamwork to save a woman's life.
The call came out at cars upside down in the water, and they're still in the vehicle.
Is she in the back seat?
Sergeant DePoter tried to pull out a person.
Go towards the wall.
The bulkhead at the pier was too high. We needed to begin life-saving measures as she wasn't breathing.
Gloucester City, New Jersey is a small community just a bridge away from Philadelphia.
It's a small town. It's 2.2 square miles. I've lived here my whole life. Everyone knows everyone.
A blue-collar town. We got good people, a lot of good people.
Gloucester is on the Delaware River, and we're a big port town.
In April of 2022, this port would be the scene of a heroic rescue.
I was pulling down the driveway of the station, and the call came out there was a car overturned in the Delaware River. And our station's about 2 blocks from the water, so I was the first one on scene. I just started asking people what happened. Did you see somebody in the vehicle? And there was one person on scene who said, yeah, there's someone inside of it.
Yeah, they said she's in there.
With no time to lose, Officer Gartland lowered himself down the 8-foot bulkhead to search for the victim.
I got you.
The car's upside down in the water, and they're still in the vehicle.
Obviously, I was thinking the worst, like, well, we better get there fast.
I pulled up about where that gray car is. This fence was missing, this little gate, and the vehicle was in that dirty water, upside down.
When I went to look over, I saw Officer Gartland was already down into the water going towards the vehicle.
Put a rush on everybody. The whole top of the car submerged.
As soon as they said someone was in a car,
I immediately began taking off all my gear and proceeded to go into the water.
probably went to like maybe my chest area.
The 3 officers made their way out to the submerged vehicle.
She in the back seat, breathing air up top.
The whole cabin was filled with water. We didn't see anyone inside, and we all went into work. That water is very murky and dark, and there's a lot of just stuff that's in there. I wasn't sure if she was still in the car at all.
Officer Gartland was on one side of the vehicle. I went to the other side and began feeling around because you couldn't see.
I was reaching in, trying to feel for the victim. I couldn't feel anyone. Officer Gartland was also searching inside the vehicle. He could not find anyone.
Person in there?
I checked the front seat and I felt down like on the floorboard, and then I went to the back door, and that's where I could feel her.
You got her! You got her! You got her!
Sergeant DePoter said, "I got her," and pulled her out.
Get her out!
When I ended up getting the victim out of the vehicle, they were like gray.
Go towards the wall!
She was unconscious and unresponsive. We knew we had to begin CPR right away. We were trying to figure out a way to get her from the water to the top of the bulkhead to actually receive more help from the other officers on scene. The bulkhead at the pier was too high for us to lift her out of the water. We had no rope or anything. We realized we needed to make a decision.
Coming up,
We needed to begin life-saving measures as she wasn't breathing.
Can't breathe. Everybody get out of the way.
We got her onto the log, and then the other officers were kind of holding her while I was doing chest compressions.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
and later, a training exercise turns into a real-life rescue.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe that something like that actually happened in front of us.
But first, a tip to keep you safe while driving.
Every year, thousands of people find themselves trapped inside their vehicles and submerged underwater.
Water pressure can impede a door exit, so the window is your best bet for escape. Calmly remove or cut your seatbelt and break the glass.
Be prepared with a glass breaker, like this one. They're easily available and inexpensive. This simple device could save your life.
In April of 2022, police officers in Gloucester, New Jersey responded to a car that had crashed into the Delaware River.
You got it! You got it!
They pulled the unresponsive woman from the vehicle.
Yo, go towards the wall.
But they had no way to transport her up the steep bulkhead.
There was no easy way to get her out without taking loads of time. We needed to begin life-saving measures as she wasn't breathing.
In order to perform CPR, the victim should be lying on a flat, solid surface, something these officers did not have at their disposal.
At that point, the only option was a log floating in the Delaware that we were able to prop the victim up on and use that to perform CPR.
We got her onto the log, like maybe the shoulder area, and then the other officers were kind of holding her while I was doing chest compressions. Obviously in air, it's going to be tough. Not to mention the water is maybe like chest high, so I'm trying to hold her but get enough force to do it.
She was doing them one-handed on a floating log, and the amount of strength it takes to do that was actually pretty astounding.
We just stayed on the log, stayed doing the chest compressions.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no way we were going to be able to lift her 10 feet or 8 feet, whatever.
Across the port, geologist Michael Natron was working on a barge, collecting soil samples from the river.
I looked over and noticed that there was a car upside down floating in the water. Once we saw the police jumping in the water, we quickly realized that it is probably worst case scenario. One of the ship's crew members said that they were gonna head over there, and before you know it, all three of us were heading over there.
The four men hopped onto a smaller boat and raced to the scene.
We were doing chest compressions at the time, and someone yelled, "There's a boat."
Yo, you got a good Samaritan boat here. That's about what we got.
When I turned and looked, the boat was literally as close as this whiteboard.
They were right there behind us. I asked the gentleman if we could use their boat.
Can we use this boat? Take this over here.
Okay, now we got at least access to get her out of the water.
1, 2, 3. Get her on the boat. Let go. Let go. Let go.
So myself, Officer Gartland, and Sergeant DePoter were able to lift her up, and I hopped on board and began CPR.
Other side of this dock. Yes, go.
He started CPR, and due to him just being in the water, he was obviously very cold. So I took over CPR for him.
Officer Burjeski was hesitant at first, not realizing that Michael himself was a trained first responder.
I've been a volunteer firefighter between 3 different stations for almost 12 years now.
The gentleman on board of the boat did chest compressions all the way back around to the other side of the pier to where we got her off the dock.
The woman was rushed to the hospital, but she was touch and go for several days.
We were constantly doing checkups on her to see if there was any improvement. From what we were understanding, there was no improvement, and it wasn't going to turn out well. It was 2 or 3 days later that her organs kicked in, and she was becoming more stable.
In fact, a month later, the woman presented the 3 officers and the 4 Good Samaritans with a special commendation for their heroism.
We actually got awards for it, and she was there, and she gave me a hug, and I was like, okay, this is real now. And that's when it finally felt good.
It was a neat moment to finally meet someone, because especially when it comes to fire calls, you don't usually get to meet the people that you help.
Everyone came together, everyone did something that made this outcome happen the way it happened.
As bad as the situation was, the log being there, the boat showing up, it was a perfect storm of coincidences that saved this woman's life.
Coming up, an elderly man is trapped in a sinking vehicle as a film crew captures the dramatic rescue.
My initial thought was, we gotta get this guy out of here now.
Swiftwater rescue teams are highly specialized squads who train constantly for any kind of aquatic emergency. It could be on a lake, a river, the ocean, or even in a flood.
But what happens when a training exercise turns into a real-life rescue?
We were doing a mock rescue, essentially went through all the steps of a real rescue.
On the way back in, we noticed a guy drive his vehicle straight into the water.
Car that just went off. Hold on.
It was almost like in shock. Can't believe this is happening right now.
Havre de Grace, Maryland is a quaint community located at the intersection of two major waterways.
The city of Havre de Grace is right on where the Susquehanna River meets the Chesapeake Bay. So our Concord Point Lighthouse is actually the tip of the Chesapeake Bay.
The culture down here is definitely a water-based culture. There's marinas all up and down the river here. There's boats out there all the time, all year long.
Because of the amount of boating traffic, members of this hose company are well trained in water rescue.
Marine 5 is our fireboat. It is extremely unique in the fact that it is a high-speed landing craft.
All clear, Marty.
It was custom designed for the fire company.
We probably have about 2 to 3 dozen boat calls a year.
We run into a lot of distress calls. Boaters go out there at night, get lost. We do have some boats overturned, boats sink and stuff like that.
The county where Havre de Grace is located utilizes all volunteer fire departments. In November of 2021, they were looking for ways to attract potential volunteers.
The Hartford County Volunteer Firemen's Association had hired a promotional film crew to come down and do a recruiting video.
I was invited to be part of the video crew and capturing the fire and EMS companies, doing training exercises.
We were asked to show off some of the Marine 5 and some of the water work. So we went out with me acting as a rescue swimmer.
We staged a rescue with our diving dummy. We put him in a kayak and flipped the kayak over.
Essentially went through all the steps of a real rescue.
And then we filmed the response of how we managed that situation.
So we wrapped up the first of these training exercises. The filming was going great. The boat pulled in and we were about to begin with that second exercise.
Suddenly, this training exercise turned into a life or death rescue.
We tied up to our bulkhead there at the marina downtown.
I looked off to my side and saw the sedan go into the water.
Elderly gentleman confused the brake and the accelerator, jumped over the park strop, took out piling, and went in the water.
And I said, holy heck, I said, Alex, you see that?
I was shocked. I couldn't believe that something like that happened in front of us while we were doing a rescue drill.
Car that just went off the knob at City Park.
I wasn't sure if it was part of the exercise or what was going on. No one had briefed me on it, so I was surprised and honestly in a bit of shock.
At that time, Alex called in for a full water box rescue, and he said, Rocky, get over there as close as you can get.
My initial thought was, you gotta get this guy out of here now.
Coming up,
our rescue diver was trying to get the door open.
But there was so much pressure against it from the water.
And the car was not going to stop sinking.
But first, another safety tip that could save a life.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest are outside of the hospital when it occurs.
CPR can double a victim's chance of survival. Training classes are easy to find and last under 3 hours. Your local fire department can direct you to the most convenient CPR training location.
And remember, learning how to revive can help others stay alive.
In November of 2021, a camera crew was filming a mock water rescue with members of the Susquehanna Hose Company. Suddenly, a car plunged into the river right in front of their eyes. Everyone was stunned.
There was probably a split second of, I can't believe this is happening now.
But there was no time to lose.
I was no more than 20 feet away from him, so I just went in after him to see if I could help get him out.
He immediately swept into action. He actually jumped in and started to work on extricating the individual from the vehicle, all while our film crew just kept rolling tape.
Car that just went off the dock, that city car.
The water depth in that area could be anywhere from 6 to 12 feet, so the car was definitely submerged.
I immediately notified our dispatch that we had a car drive off our bulkhead into the water in front of us, that we were on scene, and that we were going to need a full medical response.
Okay, start me a medic unit right now.
I told our boat operator to go ahead and start making your way over to the car because it was about maybe 10, 15 yards away from us at this point. So we got as close as we could.
I'm just trying to control the boat because when you got a diver in the water, it's critical. I mean, you can run over top of him.
Hold on.
We were able to tie a rope to the axle of the vehicle and tie it to our boat so we could try to keep the car up as long as possible because it was rapidly sinking. I was there yelling, you need to get your seatbelt off and get over as close as he could to the passenger side where our rescue diver was trying to get the door open.
I was able to crack the car door a little bit, but there was so much pressure against it from the water that I was not able to open it enough.
There was too much water pressure, so that kind of wasn't an option, and the car was not going to stop sinking.
And there was no way to escape through the windows.
People don't think about a car in the water. Everything's electric now. Once the electric is fouled, nothing works, so you can't roll the windows down.
It probably would have been submerged in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. It didn't have long. It was filling quick.
They would have to make a quick decision.
At that point in time, I asked someone to get me a pike pole.
A pike pole is a steel tool used by firefighters to ventilate fires, destroy drywall, and break windows.
I told the rescue diver that I was going to bust the window and to cover his face.
We had a rescue diver right there at the window. When they went to go break it, he was literally inches from it.
I hit the window 2 times, and after the second time, the window shattered in.
Cover your eyes. Go ahead. Hey, you gotta get your seatbelt off and get out of here.
And the car immediately started to fill up and sink with water.
From the time frame that the window broke to the time frame that car went down was a matter of seconds. That's when everything went very, very fast.
As the car began to rapidly sink with the elderly man inside, Martin dove underwater in an attempt to pull him out.
Everyone was silent for them 5-10 seconds, just hoping that they came up. It was kind of breath-stopping almost. Everyone kind of just hoped, prayed that they all came back up.
Time just seemed to slow down. It was like watching a slow-mo movie.
I knew that I had a relatively short amount of time. And I just reached in and I grabbed it. I got a hold of his clothing, and at that time, with everything I had, I was not letting go. He just slid straight out the window as the car started going down. He just popped right out with me.
There was a huge feeling of relief because everyone was up and breathing.
The crew was able to grab a hold of the man and pull him up onto the boat where we immediately rendered medical attention to him.
Once the patient was on the boat, I grabbed a blanket, wrapped him up to prevent any hypothermia. He had some cuts on his hands, so I grabbed some gauze and started wrapping him up.
He was very shaken up, but other than a couple cuts and scrapes, he was taken to the hospital and made a full recovery.
But these first responders know things could have been much worse.
We would have been here at the firehouse and not there. That car would have been fully submerged by the time we got there. We could have been looking at a very different tragic incident.
This was ultimately a success because we were in the right place at the right time. It's gotten so much attention just because the film crew was in the right place at the right time, which doesn't happen either.
I've had the opportunity to film a whole variety of mock rescues, but to actually be there and to witness these first responders in action responding to a real live call that happened, fortunately, just feet away. It left me with a feeling of even more gratitude for the first responders for the work that they do to help people in some of the most desperate moments of their lives.
When we think of firefighters and police officers, we probably don't think water rescue, but we should.
Thankfully, their dedication and training means they will literally jump into any situation to save the lives of those in need.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.